Well, hey guys, welcome back. We survived the night. Nobody died. Nobody got hypothermic. I didn't even shiver at all. I stayed pretty cozy, right?
No, I checked in on you every couple hours.
Yeah, smelled me. Made sure I was okay. Made sure I was okay. Hydration's gonna be a thing. I haven't drank really any water since I've gotten here. So, and I dumped a little bit of water last night, which is not cool. So I'm gonna have to drink this down and then get another one cooking to make sure I get at least a couple of these bags in me each day so I don't get dehydrated.
And this is kind of where we went down to the water.
Yep.
So just going up from here, and we've kind of explored this area already.
Yep.
We've got a beaver dam a little bit higher up. We can cross right over here. Up here is a smaller creek. It Y's off here, so the water's running this way, of course. This is a larger area, and this gets only about 2 or 3 feet wide, and then a lot of willows in this area. Up a little higher on this side, kind of the ridge goes up a little bit. Good vantage point over here, and this is where a nice little beaver pond, large watery area.
Some fish.
Yeah, question mark fish. I think I saw some fish in that area.
Right. Let's say you don't know where you are and you want to find your way out of this thing. Can't get back to your vehicle for whatever reason. Typically, I would say find this water source and follow it downstream until you run into the road or you run into a house or whatever. This just gives you something easy to follow, easier to follow. But if you're healthy enough, you're not injured, you've got the energy, potentially hiking up to one of these ridges and just being able to see over to the other side and getting maybe a 360 vantage point, you might be able to see salvation just on the other side. You don't know unless you checked it out. So if it's not a mountain, something that's going to crush you to climb it, it might be worth doing. And that's something that we might experiment with here in a little while and see what's on the other side. That might be it. If this was a real scenario and we were lost, maybe just right over there on the other side, we'll see a house. Who knows? He's ready for action. Come on in, buddy. Yeah, come on in. There you go. Okay. That's a good dog. Okay. All right.
As you notice that the tool tubes, so the wire saw, the brass wire, those things, they all come in a polyolefin straw.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is those straws, so that's a really tough, that's not your typical plastic straw.
Yeah.
And you can stretch those out. So you can turn those into a straw and you can suck them out of here, and maybe we'll try that later.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
Because the other idea, though, is having a straw, having a tubular device, is you can blow on fire. You can also suck water out of, really hard to reach places as well.
So I always recommend you purify your water, whether you're boiling it in a canteen or you're rock boiling it in a wood bowl or whatever. If you have that ability to purify your water, run it through a man-made water purifier, something like Sawyer. In general, you have 3 days to survive without water. If you can't purify that water and you have a water source, drink it. It's going to extend your lifespan. Just know that you could potentially get Giardia, beaver fever, cryptosporidium, some sort of bacteria.
Getting Giardia is better than dying of dehydration.
Yeah, it's short term, because what it does is it's going to dehydrate you further because you get diarrhea, vomiting, and stuff like that. But there's always that potential that water is safe enough to drink, and it's better to extend your lifespan, whether it's 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, than to fall over from dehydration in 3 to 5 days.
I'm sucking wind. I am not used to this altitude. We're at like 75 or something like that, 100 feet. Dustin is making it look like it's no problem at all.
I live at altitude.
Making me feel bad about myself, but he does live at what, 5,000 feet or something? Yeah, so that's a thing. Something that's important, I think, to mention if you are going to attempt something like this, if you are in that lost hiker scenario, is make sure you can find your way back to your camp. If you've already set up camp, you've put all that time and energy into it. And so what I would do in this situation is I look across this ridge. Thankfully, you can see a pretty good ways around here. There's not a lot of trees in the way. I know that my camp is directly below that peak right there. And if I can get myself back to this, just use that as a visual, hike towards that, find the river, I can find my way straight back to the camp pretty easily. So it's important not to get extra lost. More lost than you already are. Yeah.
These are the most accurate button compasses on the planet. We can continue taking our bearings. So the creek is kind of a south-north orientation, and so it kind of flows down. So we know that our camp right now, we're kind of going a little bit east-southeast. And so that's just our bearing right now.
Perfect. So we just constantly kind of be checking in on that. And so there are vehicles. It just so happens to be our vehicles. In this situation, guys, like hiking up to the top of this ridge line took us maybe 10 minutes at most. Paid off because we found our vehicles. And when you've got open terrain like this with not a lot of trees and stuff in the way, you can see a long ways and you can potentially find your way to salvation easy, you know, following that typical rule of like, oh crap, I'm lost, I don't know what to do, I can't find my way back, I'll just follow the stream. Downstream would take us so much further away from where we started. That's only in a straight line, I mean, that's only a half mile maybe. Following the creek like we did took a little longer, but still. So it just goes to show you don't always need to follow those strict guidelines. Sometimes you need to think outside the box a little bit and make practical quality decisions based on your situation. So
our foraging net gator we just came out recently. Now we would want to properly identify this. This is not an identification sheet, but it is a good primer to help you remember top of mind. And it's also a good teaching aid. So when you're not out, quote, doing a 72-hour survival challenge, the plants and fungi on this is a really good scavenger hunt. I think if you learn these, you learn a variety of different things. And so in particular, we put the prickly pear cactus on there because you can find them all over the US and the world. I literally found one in Israel one time. They provide one special thing that's pretty hard to get in nature, and that's gonna be some sugars. They're little, what they call tunas, what in Spanish they call tunas. And this is that red fruit. This is just one of our bandanas with a net. It's gonna come in handy for this spiky little thing.
Put that over your head for a mosquito net too.
And great for mosquito net, yeah.
there we go. That's what I needed. So we've got a small signal mirror here. And it's not just a signal mirror. Something that you might find yourself using it for even more often is if you were to walk into a branch, get something stuck in your eyeball, you could easily use this to kind of self-aid and see what's going on, because if you had any injury to your face at all, it's really difficult to do by yourself. People often talk about, Dustin mentioned it earlier, checking the crotch and things like that for ticks and whatnot. That's definitely a thing for sure. Getting to those hard to reach places, hard to see places, but anything in your eye, face and stuff that you need to get, even if it's just something that is annoying as an eyelash in your eyeball, something like this can help you get it out of there. So really handy thing to have. All right, guys, so we've come across some tracks here in the sand. And quite obviously to me, I know that that's a deer. The tracking bandana here has quite a few varieties of footprints on here to help you kind of identify some tracks that you might come across. And here, very clearly, is a white-tailed deer. And if I compare that to this track, it's, unmistakable. That's exactly what that is, whitetail or blacktail. It's going to be very, very similar. So it's a really handy thing to have, especially if you're just curious, interested in trying to find out, what the animals in your area are, not necessarily for a survival situation, but if you just want to know kind of what's out and about, something like this can help you identify it. And on the same lines of tracking, if you're having you can see the track, but you can't really make out the details of it. Something that I've done, specifically on gravestones, actually. So I'm a big fan of going to old graveyards and things like that and checking it out, and just for some reason that's fascinating to me too. Like go to the old Civil War graveyards and things like that, and it's really difficult to read the stones sometimes. You just cannot make out. You can tell that there's some sort of engraving on there, but you can't read it. So what you do is use a flashlight. Or you can probably use a mirror as well, but a flashlight's what I've traditionally used. And you take the flashlight, and let's say this is the gravestone. You take the flashlight and you hold it at an angle like this, and you shine it this direction. And what that will do is it will create a really big contrast. It will shadow all of the depressions of the carvings, and it'll make it really, really easy for you to read the writing on the stone. And the same principle can be applied to this. So we can use our flashlight. It's gonna be tough because it's so bright out right now, but you can use this and shine it at a really close to the ground angle, and it's going to give you some darkness and make the shadows a little bit more in the depression points, and you can kind of pick up a little bit more detail on it. You can kind of get what I'm seeing there. Pick up kind of the depressions in the footprint a little bit more clearly, and you could probably do the same thing. I haven't done this specifically, but you could probably do the same thing with a mirror and kind of get some light shining on the situation and just make it a little bit more easy for you to identify what you're looking at. Those are awfully prickly.
Yeah.
We should call this plant something like, I don't know, like a prickly...
Well, it looks like pears, like these
Prickly
little fruity
pear.
things, like with pears, so we could like mix those words together.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, something easy to remember. Prickly pear might be a good name.
Stinging apple.
Rolling. Describe the taste of a juniper berry for me.
Well, they definitely have like a little bit of a turpentine at the end, but before that, they're sweet. A lot of people say juniper actually is what gin is made out of. Juniper is what flavors gin. And Jennifer is what it used to be called. And so sometimes you'll get them that they have like a little more stringency. These, to me, they're
pretty sweet.
Pretty sweet, right? Yeah. I don't know how to describe them. Maybe a little bit of blueberry, but it's probably just because they're blue.
Because they're blue. Yeah, it actually does, I think, taste a little bit like a blueberry, but and then at the very end, it's got a not so pleasant flavor.
A little astringent, yeah.
Yeah, it would definitely do for a shelter.
Yeah, the only really big downside of this, other than a Sasquatch could return to it and be pissed,
Yeah,
is that
there's that.
this rock
Yeah, super.
has a lot of fractures.
Yeah.
But you know, as you start heating this rock and it starts expanding these cracks, you don't want a big shelf to fall down on your head.
But it is natural shelter. I mean, if it was raining,
Oh, yeah.
snowing, and you had nothing.
Yeah, it's flat. It's got a lot of good things going for it.
Yeah. It's got a really nice view.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if this hasn't been inhabited
At one
time or
point,
two.
yeah.
I mean, you got a good vantage point of this little valley. Well, one thing that a lot of people don't know about the design of our ceramic folder is that this little pinch portion here that you can grab the blade that also doubles as the ferro rod scraper really goes well to neck things. So you can take it, put it in something like this.
Almost like a cigar.
Oh yeah, I've used this on a cigar, yeah, actually. And if I had all angles to reach, I'd just kind of go around in a circle. Yeah, that's better, actually. And so you can do this much larger pieces. You can get a nice flush cut. And you can do that with larger pieces, even larger than this little divot, because it'll still stay in.
Currently, we're gathering some of the willow, and this is, what was it, the pussy willow, I think is actually what
Maybe
these are?
it's pussy willow,
Yeah, which is
steep willow, I'm not sure.
Which sounds naughty to say, but that's it's okay. So that's the name of the plant. So we're gathering some of it. So you could chew on the ends. Dustin was telling me that this reddish, the brighter red color is where you're going to get most of the medicinal value. And it actually it's kind of nature's natural aspirin. And if you were in a situation like this and you were having altitude issues and having headaches and such, chewing on the ends of these might actually help it out. You could also cut it up a little bit smaller and make yourself some sort of a brew, and then drink that, and that might ease some of your ailments.
Willow, aka, or in the scientific name, Salix. Salix or salicin or salicylic acid is the precursor, or salicin is a precursor for aspirin, and it can be used medicinally. You can see by our bandana, we point that out. There's a couple different things, indicators here, which you can use willows for. You can use it for cordage. We can strip off the bark and use it for that. You can use it for protein. But in this case, what we want to do is get Jason some medicine. And so you see it's got a little teacup looking thing indicator here, and it's pointing out particularly to the younger shoots where a lot of the medicinal properties are more concentrated. So we've went ahead and collected that. You can kind of see those are similar in aesthetic. That's where the young buds are.
All right, so Dustin's behind me, busy at work. We've come across a food source. There's very few wild edibles out here. And this is upstream of a beaver dam. And there are cattails here. There's cattails over here on the far side of the creek, but the water is freezing cold. And I don't want to sound like a wuss, but I don't want to go in there unless I absolutely have to. It's like painfully cold water. Who knows, we might take a polar bear plunge on the last day just because we can.
That'd be nice. That'd be super nice.
And there's a little sprout one there too. That'll be good to eat. I have eaten my fair share of cattail tubers. I basically lived off those for a month in Louisiana at one time. And it is very starchy. You kind of roast them over the fire, peel off kind of the outside bark and chew on it until you get the pulp, starchy pulp out, and then spit out the rest, the stuff that's kind of indigestible. Oh yeah. That's a score right there. All right, you win. Oh, that's gonna work great. So a lot of people give the wire saw flack. You know, they think, it's, you know, useless, worthless. It's not gonna do you any good. You'll never be able to cut anything with it. However, for small tasks, for small projects, and even bigger stuff, I've cut pretty good sized stuff with a wire saw pretty efficiently. Is it as good as, you know, like a silky saw? No, of course not. But I can't carry a silky saw on a plane either. So there's that. But what we can do with this is we can turn this into a little bit more of an efficient saw by turning it into a buck saw. But before we do that, we're going to turn it into a bow saw, and that is going to make gathering the materials for the buck saw that much more efficient. Around here, there's no straight wood really of any kind other than the willows down here by the creek. But the problem with the willows is it's all pretty small stuff. So what we're going to do is just get a little bit creative here and use this doubled up piece to make our bow saw. And I think it will be just enough kind of tension on the saw itself to make it work. But first time I've done this style, so we'll see what's going on. I'm going to call this the wishbone bow saw. Wishbone wire bow saw. That's my term. Nobody can use that without, you know, getting permission from me.
10%.
10%. I require 10% from you. That's awesome. probably hold it. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Let's see why that won't work. What do you think?
Only one way to find out.
There's only one way to find out. Let's try it on this guy right here. Oh yeah. That works so much better than doing it with the thumb loops. Much more efficient, and you can have another hand to kind of manipulate what you're cutting. It doesn't get bound up as much. And you can cut all the way through really cleanly, really easily. And if you wanted to play a little song, you could do that as well. Oh, God. That is obnoxiously loud. That's a horrible whistle, but very good if you're trying to get found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the two keys that we wanted to do with this whistle, I mean, I guess there's three, but we wanted to make it as small as possible. That's our MO. So we try to make it as tiny as possible, but maintaining its ability to be a whistle. And what you don't realize sometimes, so there's a lot of different dimensions at play here. There's chamber length, there's chamber width, there's the depth of this notch here, there's the size of this blowhole here, and you talk about the air blowing through it. You're basically talking about the principles of turbulence, just like the water right behind us and the way it swirls and stuff. When they study air currents, that's what's happening with the whistle. You're basically creating turbulence inside there. And the key things that we wanted to do, other than making it small, is make it so it wouldn't be overblown or underblown. So we wanted it so if a little kid blew it, it still makes a whistle, like the least amount, which a lot won't do that. And then, I'm not gonna do it because you're right here, you can blow it as hard as you want to, and it won't hit a percussive, it won't over percuss to the point where it goes, it'll blow out. Most whistle, it'll go, just like when my mouth whistle did. Like eventually you get a high pitch, it'll actually cut out.
Stops making the whistling sound.
Yeah, and so that took a lot of testing to get that that perfect little size so that it maintains that turbulence throughout.
You're a scientist.
And did you ever know these little parts about this?
Uh-uh.
We call it the SOS whistle.
Okay.
So it's SOS dot dash dash.
Oh, look at
dash,
you.
Dot,
put your hand behind that so I can see that. There you go. So that's the SOS pattern right there. That's pretty cool.
And it actually comes with instructions on it too.
Okay.
So sometimes, like if we have customer support issues, people can't figure out how to, I don't understand, like how do you make it work? Well, instructions are right there on it. Just blow it up your wazoo. Jason strung up this wire saw into a bow saw. And the reason for that is because we're gonna then convert this bow saw into a buck saw. And it's a lot easier to do notching and some other kind of cutting techniques when you already have it in this format versus trying to do it with your hand. So it's almost a necessary thing to kind of take these little baby steps. Go ahead and do a quickie bow saw, and then we're gonna go ahead and murder this oak tree.
What's with you and like trying to kill things, man? And you're just like, is that sort of your thing?
I want to put it out there because when this goes on YouTube, I just want to make it very clear that I don't care.
Just
Jim
don't.
Bob 40177, I don't care. I'm cutting down this tree. I'm murdering it. I'm taking its dear life for a fun little project.
Yes. So don't even leave it in the comments.
Yeah, don't even
want to hear it.
I wanted to use the most insensitive language as possible.
Murder this tree.
No, I love trees. I love plants. And this is a very rational thing to do. You'll see this is a baby oak. There's tons of them right here, right beside it. And so we're not murdering a 50-year-old oak. And
It's a renewable resource, right?
this is oaks like this. Yeah,
Your house is made of wood. That's right.
This one's like a little sapling, and there will be more that will grow up right beside him, as there already are. So nice with this patented handle.
Right?
Patented
10%.
extension Jason handle. hey, we're in a survival scenario. There's no use for us to get exhausted. Take it slow. Long strokes like you're doing a bow drill. Let it do its work.
And if you're not so picky, you could always just kind of go all the way around the outside of it and then break it, unless you want it to be really pretty.
See, it's a little crooked there.
Oh, this will never work.
Yeah, it's going good now.
I would say to make it really tight, a cut on the outside of that line. Are all of these things that we're doing necessary, like absolutely necessary for our survival? Are we going to die if we don't create this buck saw? You know, maybe not. I mean, maybe we need this tool to make us more efficient in building our shelter. But really, sometimes I think a lot of people require being busy in survival situations. I think if this was for real, and you're just sitting there staring at the fire, or just, you know, thinking about how miserable life is for you, it can get pretty dark and pretty depressing. And by keeping your hands active and your mind active, it can really, it can do a lot to boost morale, I think. And I think that's why some of these small tasks like these small chores can be really beneficial, not just for the utility of using the saw, but keeping your mind in a good place.
Well, we had a casualty, but not a fatality. So Jason put his water bag down. I guess it
Carelessly.
I guess it poked into some stick or something and plugged a hole, popped a hole in it. And so went ahead and patched it. And this is interesting that you can patch these because the purpose of these bags is to be the smallest, most compact, like water bag, 1 liter water bag out there. And prior to this, if you read a lot of survival manuals or you ask a lot of survival instructors, experts, a lot of times they would suggest, and even the military would suggest a condom, because a condom is very compact, right? But the issues with the condom is not only is it very hard to fill up, because to fill it up, you have to have running water. You have to basically have a faucet pouring into it for it to expand out. But let's say best case scenario, you do have that little waterfall that'll expand it out, because you can't scoop it. It won't expand out scooping it. So let's just say best case scenario, you have that. Now you have this like water balloon that
Delicate.
very
fragile,
delicate,
yeah.
super delicate. They'll suggest sometimes put it in a sock. That's a compensatory behavior you have to do in order to really be fragile. Be careful with this thing. And if that happened to you and you got that little pinhole prick in it from setting it down, even with the sock, some little sticker burr sticks through it, it's gone. There's no way to repair a latex condom. However, with these bags, very easy to repair. Just take the duct tape and it's sealed back up and it's good to go again.
I think a really important thing is to constantly be improving your situation. So last night we made a shelter. We had a bed to sleep on to keep us off the cold ground. But we inevitably realized some flaws in kind of our setup. The position, it was too far, too close to the fire, stick stabbing you in the back, whatever it is, your tarp's not high enough, whatever it may be. On the second night, we can always remedy that as long as we're not constantly moving. But if we're stationary and we're planning on staying here for a little while, we can constantly be making our situation a little bit better, making ourselves a little bit more comfortable. And doing that makes you just a little bit less miserable in a survival situation, which is huge. So what we've done is just kind of bring both of our shelters in towards the fire a little bit. My feet got pretty cold last night because they were just, if I was going to lay on my bed over there, my feet would be pretty far from the flame, and that's unpleasant. So we're just kind of moving our shelters a little bit closer to the fire. Hopefully we don't get too many pops and burn holes in our Mylar, but you know, nothing's perfect. No situation is flawless, but it's going to be a little bit better than it was last night.
These are the legs. Oh, this is our new packaging, and this is not meant to be used in an emergency, but it's made more to be tested. We want people to use our gear, and so every fire starter keychain comes with tinder.
A little bit of tinder.
A little bit of tinder.
So basically what you're saying is you want whoever buys your products to try them out before they, you know, have to in a real situation.
Use it.
Yeah.
Please use it. Ready?
Yep. Yeah, that's good.
You'll notice the way it's configured lends itself to being able to stack up a little fire layer around it.
Ooh, that's nice. So right now I'm carving the notch that's actually where we're gonna insert the wire saw to hold it in place, just like we did on the bottom side of our bow saw. It's just gonna keep it in place. Well, what's for dinner?
Well, dinner is cattail rhizomes, and that one's probably more than cooked. That's for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I prefer my
sorry.
my rhizomes well done.
And I just broke off your prickly pear fruit.
And here is a prickly pear fruit that has been roasted, toasted, and then sliced in half. And they're not bad. I mean, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of sweetness to them. The cattails, pretty much you just chew them up into a pulp and get all the starch out of them and then spit out the rest. The prickly pear here, the fruit you just got to be careful with because the tiny little glocked hairs can, even after you scorch them, Jason was telling us you got to be real careful because they can still be there. I basically just cut them in half and then kind of, I don't know, what kind of fruit you would eat like that. Similar to some
kiwi?
other fruit. Maybe kiwi, yeah. Just kind of eat the meat out of the middle.
So tomorrow, hopefully we'll get some fish. We'll continue filling our bodies with some food, but I feel pretty good about our priority list and what we accomplished.
I feel pretty good about our situation. I need to stay on top of being hydrated a little bit better. Yeah. Haven't drank hardly nearly as much water as I should. But other than that, I feel pretty good about life. Anyway, stay tuned. This is, what day are we on here? This is day 2?
What day is it?
Yeah, day 2. We're somewhere around the 30 hour mark, something like that. And we're going for the 72. So, anywho, make sure you hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next one.